Here's a quick video for all you Vcontrol users out there. They, being Mikado, sells a simulator adapter wire set, part number 4910 for $20. And what it does is it allows you to hook your simulator to your Vcontrol. But I was looking at the part online, and it looks like just a USB cable and an audio jack. And I thought I'd just try to whip one up from some spare parts I've got. So I'm sure everybody's got a few USB cables laying around. Doesn't matter the small end, you're after the male A side. So we've got that. If you've got just an audio cable laying around with a stereo or mono jack on it, you can snip it off. I happen to have on hand an 1/8 inch jack I'd ordered for some other project. And it's unused, so it unscrews, and I've got all the clean contacts there to solder to, so I'm going to be using this, but I could easily just use a end snipped off of another cable. And a patch cable. We'll need two male servo connectors, so I've got plenty of patch cables laying around from vbars that I've never patched anything to, so we'll be snipping that in half to get our two ends. So we'll start with that. First thing we'll do is just snip this right in half. So on one of these we only need signal and ground, so we'll be pulling out the red wire. Suppose I could have made this easier on myself if I'd have separated these first. There you go, that's garbage. So yellow will be our signal wire and brown will be our ground. Now since this is a stereo connector, we're going to want to put signal to tip. Now if you don't know how audio connectors work, there's tip, ring, and ground. So the ground is ground, and then I believe one channel would be the ring and the other channel is the tip. But for, that could be wrong, I don't know. But in our case, we're going to want to take signal and attach that to the tip. And we can use our continuity checker to figure out which one's tip. So all we have to do is touch the tip and see which one of these gives us. So it looks like the left one when I'm viewing it from the top. So this would be ground and the right one should be ring. So tip is left. I'm going to go ahead and just mark that with a red Sharpie so I remember which one it is. So this is tip. And everything else is going to be soldered to ground. So what I'll end up doing is stripping off a good bit of the ground wire and just solder it so that it touches both contact points. And then this one will just go to the tip. I may fast forward through all that, you don't need to see me solder. But essentially I'm going to just strip off a little bit of the shielding there, tin it, and solder tip to signal. And then I'm going to strip off probably about 1/2 inch of the ground and solder it so it's touching ground and ring. And don't forget to put this on before you solder it all up, or you'll be taking the wires out of the connector to get it on. And that'll be that for all of that. Now for the USB cable, we're only using negative and positive, so we'll be taking off the signal wire. So I'll go ahead and take that one out. Same way we took the positive off of the other cable. So that one's garbage. Now the only tricky part of this one is knowing which pin of USB is positive and negative. It's really not that hard. You can Google it. Just Google USB A pinouts and it'll come up. But basically when you're looking at the connector with the, I don't know what you call that, the insulator, just the fat part down, the right side is positive, the left side is negative, and the two inner pins are signal. But we're not concerned with signal right now. We just want to get positive and ground. And those are called pins 1 and 4. So this would be pin 1 over here, and this is pin 4 over here. So the next thing you'll do is figure out how much wire you want to cut off. I don't need to have a whole lot of wires hooked to everything, so I'm going to cut this pretty short. And just strip some of the insulation off so you can see what you're looking at. And peel back the wire shielding there, and inside you should have your 4 wires. It's been a long time since I looked at USB wires. If they're not color coded, shoot, even if they are color coded, I'm still gonna test them out with the voltmeter. All you gotta do is look for continuity again between, you know, pin 1 and pin 4. When you find pin 1, that's your positive, and when you find pin 4, that's your negative. But they should be coded, you know, black, white, and black and red and green and white. So I'm guessing these black and red here should pin out to 1 and 4 there, but we'll just check that real quick. So we'll get those 2 out of the way. Let's see if we can strip off some wire there. And turn it back on there again. That should be pin 1 right there. There you are. And this should be pin 4 over here. So that should pin out to that one. So that's right. So again, I'm not going to show a bunch of soldering, but basically just red to red and black to black, and you should be done. This may or may not make the final cut, but I figured I'm only doing this once, so I might as well video it. So I went ahead and stripped off about 1/4 inch of the shielding from the signal wire and about 1/2 inch from the negative. And we're going to solder this up. So remember, I had marked this one right here as the tip. And so ground and the right tab is going to be soldered to the longer ground wire. So the first thing I need to do is just tin up my wires here. Now I had mentioned remembering to put the cap on the plug before you solder it up, but the cables are so short, I think it's just going to be easier to take the servo wires out of the connector after everything's soldered up and screw it on. I'm afraid I'll melt it otherwise. That should be it for him. I got real lucky. I can see that, but if I had stripped off a little bit more wire there, I would actually be touching ground, and that would be bad. But it looks like we're safe in there. I don't have any part of this wire touching ground, so we should be good. So I'm just going to crimp that down over with a little pair of pliers. And now just screw on the cap. They're good. All right, so that cable's done. Now we have to do the same thing with this guy. In the last video, I already had peeled those back. We will try to make this a little neater. I'm going to cover it with shrink wrap so we don't have to be too worried about how neat it is. I'll just trim off some of that shielding and watch the little bits fly everywhere. I'll cut these shorter. I like to cut one shorter and one longer just so those loose ends don't have any chance of hitting one another. So we'll just pick one and cut it even shorter, because I'm not going to do anything other than put those under shrink wrap. So now we just have to tin those two. Got my wad of shrink wrap here. I want something a little bit bigger to go around this whole cable here. Yeah, 3/16 will work, since that's what I have. So we'll just get a snip about that long. Let's make sure we got that on there, and this stuff should slide right over now. There we go. Hit it with the heat gun. Shrink that stuff down. Then slide the bigger one over. Shrink that down. A few minutes of work, you made yourself a Mikado Vcontrol simulator adapter set right there. So I hope you enjoyed that.